Welcome to Box Recaps. Today I'm going to explain the movie The Boogeyman, released in 2023. The movie begins and we see a little girl standing in a dark room. A shadow comes from behind her and whispers something in her ear. The girl looks very scared. Suddenly, the shadow turns into a monster and attacks the little girl. Then we move to another scene where we can see that Sadie Harper is staring at her mother's dress. Her mother has passed away, and she really misses her mother. She's trying to cope with the fact that her mother is no longer with her. Her father, Will Harper, is also very much broken after losing his wife. But he is a strong person and keeps it together in front of the kids. Will is doing all that he can to take care of the kids. Sadie also has a little sister, Sawyer, who cannot sleep with all the lights off. Sawyer is very scared of the dark, and just like every other little kid, she thinks that if all the lights are turned off, a monster might attack her. Will takes both of his daughters to school. Sadie is wearing her mother's clothes at school. A friend of hers tells her that she must stop doing all this and move on in her life. She and Sadie get into an argument, and accidentally some yogurt is also dropped on the dress. All this makes Sadie very sad, and she goes home. Will is a therapist, and he sees all his clients at his home. A weird man named Lester comes to see him without an appointment. Will advises him that he should have booked an appointment before coming. Lester tells him that he has to talk to him about something very important. Will turns on the recorder and Lester starts to tell him that one of his daughters died some time back without any reason. Since then, he and his wife started acting weird. They did not pay too much attention to their other two. Later, the two kids were also killed, and Lester tells Will that it was a shadow monster that killed them. Lester then shows Will a drawing of the monster that his kids had made before their death. He then advises Will that he should be careful, as he has just lost his wife and the monster only comes when the parents do not pay too much attention to their kids. Will finds all this very weird and thinks that Lester is a killer, so he gets up and calls the police. By this time, Sadie is also there and goes to put her mother's dress in the laundry. Lester also sees Sadie. Sadie hears some weird noises from her mother's workshop and goes to check it out. She finds nothing there. Then she hears some noise from the closet. As she's about to open the closet, Will also joins her. When they open the closet, they see Lester's body hanging and get very scared. The police get there. Will and the police have the same opinion about the situation. They think that Lester had killed himself there, but Sadie says she heard a noise that sounded like tackling. Later, Will goes to Sawyer's room to make her sleep, and even checks her closet for any monsters. He then goes to Sadie's room, talks to her for a while, and goes back to his room to sleep. The entire family is shaken due to the loss of the mother. Sadie is searching the internet for ways on how to contact the dead. She finds a way in which she has to burn a candle, and if the flame moves, then that means that the spirit of their beloved ones is near them. Meanwhile, Sawyer gets up after hearing some noise in her closet. She sees that something is looking at her from the closet door. Then it runs under her bed from the closet. She looks under the bed and gets scared. The monster suddenly disappears. She goes to Sadie and tells her about the monster, but she ignores it. One of Sawyer's teeth is about to come out, and Sadie ties a string on it. She ties the other side of the string to a door. Sadie does not notice, but instead of her, something else closes the door. Sawyer sleeps with Sadie for the night, and we see someone pulling the string, which means that there is definitely something in the house. The next day, the girls go for their family therapy session. Will was also supposed to go to the therapy, but he never goes. Sawyer tells the therapist about the monster, but Sadie tells her that there are no such things. They put on a block-shaped light in the room and say that if there is a monster, then they will see it as the light gets dim. Suddenly, Sawyer sees the monster and gets scared. This also scares Sadie, and she also thinks now that something is wrong. They get back home, and Sadie listens to the recordings that her father had made of Lester. She hears all that Lester has to say about the monster called Boogeyman. Sadie then sees the drawings that Lester's kids made of the Boogeyman. Sawyer is alone in her room and gets scared as the boogeyman appears. She runs to Sadie and sees those drawings in her hand. She tells her that this is what the monster looks like. Now Sadie is taking the entire thing very seriously, and also she believes Sawyer. The next day, Sadie goes to Lester along with one of her friends. They find no one there, but Sadie sees that Lester's house had weird-looking roots on the walls, which had started to appear on the walls of her house too. Sadie goes upstairs and finds Lester's wife, Rita. Rita has a shotgun and has the entire corridor filled with lit candles. She is ready to kill the boogeyman and avenge her husband and kids, but she seems to be mentally sick. Sadie talks to Rita and asks her about the boogeyman. Rita tells her that the boogeyman killed her kids and her husband. He feeds on trauma and attacks families filled with trauma. He preys upon kids. Now we know that the boogeyman first attacked Lester's home, it fed on their trauma and killed everyone besides Rita, and all this made him stronger. Then he traveled with Lester to his next target, the Harpers. This family was also filled with trauma, and no one believed in Sawyer when she told them about the monster. This was the perfect situation for the boogeyman. Rita starts to shoot at Sadie as she's mentally sick by now, but Sadie runs away unharmed. She gets home and Sawyer comes to her and starts to tell her something, but she gets angry and tells her that there are no such things as monsters. Suddenly, the boogeyman breaks down the door and attacks her. This opens her eyes and she finds out that all this is just a dream. Sadie hears some noise from her mother's workshop again. She goes in and finds that Will is throwing the stuff away, as it all reminds him of his wife. She stops him and puts all the stuff back in its place. Suddenly, she senses something around her. She turns on the lighter and starts to feel the presence of her mother. Suddenly, the lighter goes off, and she returns to her room. The next day at school, Sadie's friends decide to come to her house for a sleepover. Later at night, the girls smoke some weed, and Sadie starts to cough a lot. She runs to the washroom, and suddenly, Sawyer's tooth attached with a string comes out of her mouth. Then Sadie's friends ask her to show them her mother's workshop, and she takes them there. They go inside the workshop, and Sadie sees that the cupboard's door is still open. She goes inside the cupboard, and the door gets locked. She thinks that her friends did this on purpose. When she gets out, she accuses them, but they tell her that they have nothing to do with it. Her friends get angry with her and tell her that they're trying to help her, and then they leave. This was also one of the boogeyman's tricks, to keep her away from her friends. Then we see Sadie's little sister Sawyer, who is watching the TV. She senses something is approaching her and looks behind. It is the boogeyman. She tries to hide from it, but it hurts her and leaves her in an unconscious condition. Will takes her to the hospital, and she gets well. Later, she tells her sister Sadie about the boogeyman, and now even Sadie believes what her little sister is telling her. Sadie goes to Will and tells him that the boogeyman is real, and that she has also seen him. Will tells her that she is high on weed. That is why she's saying all this. Sadie gets very angry and leaves. Sadie receives a call from Rita, and she tells her that she must come to her house as she has found a way to kill the boogeyman. It is quite late at night, but Sadie still goes to see Rita. Sadie asks Rita how they can kill the boogeyman. Rita tells her that she had to set up many traps in which the boogeyman might get stuck and get shot. The reason she had asked Sadie to come there was so that she could lure in the boogeyman. Rita was using Sadie as bait for the boogeyman. She grabs Sadie and ties her up. After some time, the boogeyman appears. As soon as he hits a trap string, bullets fire at him and he gets hit down. The boogeyman starts to bleed too. Rita comes close to the boogeyman and shoots him many times. The boogeyman is hurt, but he is not dead. So he attacks Rita and kills her. Sadie unties her hands and runs away from the house. Now we know that the boogeyman can be hurt. She calls her father and asks them to leave the house. He's about to say something to her, but gets attacked by the boogeyman. Sadie runs home and starts to look for her father and Sawyer. She finds Sawyer hiding in the closet with Christmas lights wrapped around her because the boogeyman is scared of the lights. The sisters start to look for their father, and they enter the basement floor. They find their father in the basement, but they suddenly get attacked by the boogeyman. Fuel can also drop to the ground. The boogeyman knocks the girls down, and as he's about to kill Sadie, Will attacks the boogeyman. Will hugs his girls, and at this moment, Sadie realizes that she has her mother's lighter with her. She turns on the lighter to keep the boogeyman away from them, but he keeps getting closer and closer to them. The lighter's flame starts to move sideways, which means that their mother's soul is also with them. This encourages Sadie, and she grabs a spray and starts to blow it on the flame, making a huge fireball to attack the boogeyman. At this moment, Sawyer throws fuel on the boogeyman, and Sadie puts him on fire. By now, their entire house is filled with roots on the wall, just like Lester's house. The roots also start to burn with the boogeyman and fall to the ground. Will takes his daughters and starts to leave the basement. They see the boogeyman burn to ashes, and alongside them, their trauma also burns. It can be said at this moment that the boogeyman was nothing but the trauma inside the family, which they have burned, and now they must move on with their lives. This also indicates that they are now fine with the loss of their mother, and it is time for them to move past it all. This will also have a very positive impact on the family, as now Will is going to be more concerned about his daughters, and he will take care of them as he should have been. Will also starts going to see the therapist, which will help the family move further away from their trauma. As they are about to leave the house, Sadie hears Dr. Weller's voice. She goes to check it out, and she hears some noises from the closet. Suddenly, Dr. Weller comes from the outside, and this means that the boogeyman is inside the closet. Instead of opening the closet door, she closes it. This means that Sadie will not let her family be traumatized again. This indicates that the trauma is actually never ending, but we have to cope with things in our lives and move on. The trauma always lives with us, and so does the boogeyman. The movie ends here.